Hey everyone, welcome to the Candy Cowgirl podcast. I am your host, Kate Bowser, and I'm so happy you're here today. As I mentioned on my last episode, on these off weeks that I don't have a guest with me, we are going to be diving into chapters from the book 21 Qualities of Leaders in the Bible by John C. Maxwell. And today's chapter is on commitment. So I will start by reading the quality defined, but before I do that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the podcast so far. Your comments and your shares help get this to more people and reach a different audience. So I just appreciate anytime you share, tag me in those. I love seeing them and I'm just so grateful for you all. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Commitment. It separates doers from dreamers. The world has never seen a great leader who lacked commitment. That's because true commitment inspires and attracts others. Followers need to know they can count on their leader, and commitment communicates that. Great commitment always precedes great achievement, but many people want everything to be perfect before they're willing to commit themselves to anything. This will automatically defeat them, because a half-hearted attempt rarely succeeds. The necessary steps are commitment, then action, then achievement. When it comes to commitment, there are really only 4 types of people. Cop-outs, people who have no goals and do not commit. Holdouts, people who don't know if they can reach their goals, so they're afraid to commit. Dropouts, people who start towards a goal but quit when the going gets tough. And all-outs, people who set goals, commit to them, and pay the price to reach them. To increase your level of commitment, it's important first to measure where it is right now. Sometimes we think we are committed to something when our actions indicate otherwise. Take out your calendar, your to-do list, and your bank statement. Determine how you spend your time and money. Commitment is often a case of putting your money where your mouth is. If your statements and your actions don't match, no one will be convinced that you're committed, no matter the cause. And speaking of causes, take some time to determine what you most value. Another way of saying that, know what you'd be willing to die for. If it came down to it, what in life would you not be able to stop doing, no matter what the consequences were? Even though commitment is really only measured by action, a leader's words of commitment are still important. Not only do they communicate your resolve and challenge people to trust you, they also give you motivation to follow through because the commitment has been made public. If taking the first steps towards commitment is a problem, try doing what Thomas Edison did. When he had a good idea for an invention, he would call a press conference to announce it. Then he'd go into his lab and make it happen. Half-hearted leadership produces half-hearted followers. If you want your team to fight to win, you need to be willing to lead the charge. So there's 3 things that I would like to touch on from today's chapter. First one is to share a Bible story where we see the beauty of commitment. And the second would be to share a story in my life where I was faced with the decision of commitment or dropping out. And the third is break down how commitment requires action. So one of the Bible stories that's highlighted in this chapter of commitment is the story of Ruth, and specifically her relationship with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Now, Naomi was originally from Bethlehem, and she moved to Moab with her husband and her 2 sons. Now, Naomi was widowed after, I believe it was 10 years living there, and her 2 sons eventually ended up passing as well. And she was left with her 2 daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth. As her and her daughter-in-laws prepared to go home, to travel back home, she told them that they should return to their mothers and go back to their homes. Now, in short form, Orpah did end up going home, but Ruth decided she wanted to stay, and she committed to Naomi and told her that her people would be her people and that her God will be her God. After traveling back home to Bethlehem, Naomi ends up setting the scene for Ruth to be redeemed by Naomi's relatives, Boaz. But that didn't come without work. Ruth was gleaning in the fields, and she was instructed by Naomi to go and lay at Boaz's feet and do these things. So These were all actions and things she did. It wasn't just that she went home with Naomi and all the pieces fell into place. Now her and Boaz do end up together, and Ruth then becomes the great grandmother of King David and is therefore now in the genealogy of Jesus. I think the amazing thing about this story is, had Ruth made a different decision and not committed, had she said, okay, and not committed to the family and the life that she had there, she would not have been in the genealogy of Christ. This would not have happened this way, at least from our perspective. This would not have happened this way if she did not choose commitment. I think it's just a great story of how when we make those commitments, it can literally change history. It can change our history. It can change our generational history. These commitments that maybe seem scary or unknown in the moment can have a huge impact on the future. Now, the second thing I would like to touch on is a personal story in my life, and it's one that many of you know already, but it's always been a great reminder for me to dig deep, and I hope that it is for others too. But that is the story of getting my horse Gunner. Many of you know he came to me with some behavior issues, and the easy out, and the one that I was often encouraged to do, would have been to say no to him, to get another horse, to not have taken him because of these problems that were arising or that seemed to be in the way. But I believe that God had gifted me Gunner. I believe that Gunner was a gift from God, and at that time I was young and didn't have a lot of money for a horse, and Gunner was gifted to me by a friend. I think a lot of times we think that answered prayers come to us in this perfect form or this perfect box, and there aren't going to be hurdles or any fears or complications, that it's just going to be packaged perfectly and sat in front of us. And sometimes God does work like that, but I have found, and especially in this case with Gunner, that sometimes God gives us things and there's still little bits that we have to work through, and I think there's reason. So yes, Gunner was an answer to prayer, but I was still faced with trials and some bumps in the roads after saying yes to that, so that I would learn the beauty in committing to something and the achievement in that as well. I could have easily said, God, Gunner can't be the horse for me. This can't be what you're wanting to do. There's too many issues and too many things that I need to work through with him. But I would have missed out on so many life lessons had I done that. And life lessons that have helped me in the future make decisions, and decisions that have furthered me in other aspects of my life, my career, relationships, just so many different things. And I also wouldn't have the relationship with my horse if we didn't have to work through those hard times. And I think that goes with people as well, with human relationships, with friendships or spouses. And sometimes God puts us in hard places so that we can grow with others and so that we can build deeper bonds, because even like I said with Gunner, like had he been perfect for everything I needed, he came with every button I needed already programmed into him and there was no issues and stuff, we would not have had to work through things and overcome things together. The last thing that I wanted to touch on was a part in the book that says, determine how you spend your time and your money. Commitment is often the case of putting your money where your mouth is. And one cool thing I want to say really quick is something neat that I have found since doing this podcast is God continues to give me little confirmations of the directions that I'm planning to go with each episode or each podcast. And this week, that confirmation was through a podcast episode by Sadie Robertson, Sadie Huff. Her and her husband were recording an episode, and the episode was not necessarily on commitment, but there was a portion of it that really aligned with the direction that I was wanting to go with today's topic. And that was how we often desire something, or we say we want this. Yet in our culture today, instant gratification is huge, and we want everything now. We don't want to work for it. We want it when we want it. And in a world where we can get almost anything we want within a matter of minutes or days, I mean, you can order something on Amazon and it's there tomorrow, or we can have our groceries delivered to us now. There's so many things that we can instantly get. But for the desires that we are having in our hearts and our minds, are we willing and are we wanting to put in the work to get those things, to achieve those things? In the example of my horse, I did the research. I took some lessons. I studied him and I studied body language. But whatever it is, a marriage, a job, a sport, a relationship, show me your action plan and I will show you how committed you are to that thing or that job or that person. I think another thing we do a lot is we make the situation bigger than it is in our mind. We often fear the unknown, and the enemy will use that fear against us. He is going to say things like, you can't lose the weight, or you can't reach your goals. You can't train that horse. You can't be successful in your career, or you can't make that relationship work. XYZ, whatever it is, he will fill your head with those things. And I've found that oftentimes the things that he is trying so hard to discourage you from and filling your mind with doubts about are the very things that God is blessing us with if we would just have faith and trust God that he will help us through if any hurdles arise. Try things for a bit of time as well. I think we give up too fast and we cop out way too soon, but try it for a few days. Then make it a week, make it a couple weeks, make it a month. Just take the time to commit to things and to dive deep and make sure you are in prayer about those things and make sure you are still in God's word. But watch the things that he will do in your life through the things that we are committing to, the things that we maybe don't even see how they could work. I think often we have in our head what life is going to look like or how things are going to be. I think we put things in a box, but God can use and orchestrate our commitment to things in beautiful ways, and he can turn those desires into even greater gifts. One verse I wanted to read is Proverbs 16:3, and it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." So if you are unsure if something is from God, pray about it. Give it to him. Give it all you've got. Dive into it. See if it aligns with his promises and see if it aligns with promises that he's given you in the past. Something that I've done and it's given me a lot of peace at times is writing down little promises of things that I've felt the Lord give me. And whenever we are faced in times where we're not sure, we can look at those promises and those things and it can help us make better decisions even. Never force it. Allow God to open and close doors and to protect you from things, but get wise counsel. I think wise counsel is a great gift. Obviously scripture is always our first go-to and always what we will solely depend on and rely on. But the scriptures also tell us that wise counsel is a great thing from people that you see are living their lives in ways that you admire or in godly ways, and that you've seen God working in their lives, and God can really speak through people in that way. So the last thing I'm going to say before wrapping up this episode is someone who commits to things is someone who can be trusted, and commitment separates doers from dreamers. So I hope that this was able to touch some hearts and just bring to remembrance how important commitment is and how important action is in commitment. We can't just say we want things or desire things but not have action plans to them. And don't let your fear stop you from the gifts that God is trying to give you or from the paths in life that are going to require some commitment to them. He can bless us in great ways if we would just have faith and step into those moments that we maybe have some fear about those things or we want to give up when the going gets tough. I think we also, like I touched on, sometimes that happens. It gets hard and we think, well, this can't be God's will for us. But dive in, pray, read his word, and just commit that you will do his will. Pray that he shows you his will for you, and he has some amazing, amazing things in store for those who are willing to commit. So again, thank you all for watching. I'm so grateful for each of you. I've been loving these little episodes, and these ones that are one-on-one with you guys are so fun. I hope that we can connect on these topics and really talk about them. Feel free to leave a comment or shoot me a message. So I hope you all have a blessed week, and I will see you on the next one.